I'm Julia Fisher. Welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree, which each week brings you the stories of believers in Jesus living in Israel and the West Bank, to hear what God is doing there despite the tensions and politics of the region. My guest this week is Dani Sayag. Born in Israel, he grew up in a secular family. It was during his army service that he became a believer, and today he's the pastor of the Carmel Congregation. So I asked him, what happened?
So after I finished my army, I was praying to know what to do, and then they opened a factory here in Israel. It's in Tiberias it started, called Galtronics. And that was established by believing business people, and they wanted to, especially to bless new immigrants. So the door was open to me to work there. So I worked there about almost close to 4 years. And then David and Karen Davis, actually, the first time they came here to Haifa, we already were connected with them. And they started the House of Victory, the drug rehab program. So until that time, the place was run always by volunteers from outside. And they felt that God wanted us to raise local workers at the House of Victory. And God already prepared me that a change is coming. And God spoke to David and Karen about it. So I left my work and went to work at House of Victory. And almost worked there for almost 9 years. And close to the end, you are a pastor before you're a pastor, you get a title. So I was already in the role of, it was teaching and caring for the people. So it was natural for me to step into that calling. And so leaving House of Victory and pastoring full-time at Carmel Congregation. And after a few years into pastoring, we felt that God called me and my wife to plant another congregation. When you come to Carmel Congregation, there is a unique calling there. People from the nation coming, and you will always have Hebrew, English, Russian, and Arabic, and even given Shabbat, you will have between 50 to 300 visitors. And what we saw that when native Israelis are coming, they're having a difficult time to connect, because among Jewish people, they have this feeling that Yeshua is import from outside to Israel. So we felt that we needed to do a meeting that it's going to be only in Hebrew, worship only in Hebrew, and more culturally fitting to the Israelis. So we started almost 10 years now, a congregation here in Bet Yedidia, this building, and we already saw immediate change. When Israeli came, they felt more connected. We saw people coming to faith. So we are very happy with this congregation. God is really moving in that. And Carmel Congregation, of course, I'm continue pastoring there. And as you know, about a year and a half ago, a little bit more, Pastor David Davis was promoted and went to be with the Lord. And me stepping into the position of lead pastor at Carmel Congregation.
So in a sense, you've got two sites. You've got the one up at Yusufia, which is a few miles out of Haifa, and the one here within Haifa. That means you're a busy man.
Yes, I'm at the point that I'm praying for, we raised two pastors at the Hebrew congregation, and I believe that, in a year or something like that, they can take it. And I can focus more on Carmel congregation, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Maybe some people listening to this program will have visited the Carmel Congregation, because as you say, when people come to the country, they love to go there. But it is significant because it does draw the nations together, and there's something powerful about Jew and Gentile worshipping God together.
Yes, there is a vision for Carmel Congregation, what we say, the one new man, but also from Isaiah when it says, my house will be a house of prayer for all nations. So that's the reason we open the doors for people from the nation to come and worship together with us, but also the expression of Jew and Gentile, especially here in Israel, it's also expressed with Jew and Arab. So we have Arab people also in the community, and we believe that this is what God called us to declare on Mount Carmel, that the one new man, Jew and Gentile, one in Messiah.
And of course, Haifa is fairly unique within Israel in that Jews and Arabs coexist together.
Yes, Haifa, it's definitely different from any other city in Israel. And we have here Jews, Arabs, and Druze. And we live in kind of a peaceful relationship. And it's when you on the street or the place you're living, it's always you will see a mixture. So when you reach out with the gospel, you reach out to everyone.
How would you describe the spiritual climate in the country at the moment? Are you finding people are more open to talk about God and Yeshua, or is it becoming more secular?
I would say that in Israel now more than ever there is openness to the gospel. You know, when I came to faith, when we'll do outreaches, I remember printing Isaiah 53, cutting it and go to the streets and give to people. But this generation, what we call it's the computer screen generation, it's everyone on a cell phone have access to the gospel. In Israel, they use the social media and the internet 60% more than every other nation. So we see initiatives in our community and other communities to bring the message of the gospel through the social media and the internet. And we see, millions of people watching that stuff. So the access to the gospel or even the messianic belief, it's now open to so many people, and we see the effect of that. People, it's not that we are strange to people. And also I will say that there is generation of my children generation that out there, if it's in the army, if it's in school, if it's in the business world, and they're living the faith where they are. So it's different from a small group. And, I will say that Israel in 1948 started with 3 believing Messianic family, 23 about. And now we have about 30,000 Jewish believers and about 300 congregations. So this is a big change, and we see the impact on the nation.
So in other words, you've got new believers coming through all the time. You're having to disciple a lot of people.
Not only here, I will say in different congregations, the land, there is people that are getting saved and being discipled. So I see it happen almost in every congregation.
As well as that, you're running so many other things alongside, not least humanitarian aid work. How important is that to the life of the congregation?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a lack in our government to reach out to the needy. I mean, they do it to extent, but there is many people that need help in that area. And we feel that that's a call on us, I will say on every believer, in every church, every congregation that needs to reach out to the poor around them. So we are privileged really to help people with drug problems and feeding the poor, giving shelter to the needy. Even we have shelter for women. That was kind of a surprise for us with the refugees from Africa. So we're helping women and children in that. And even older people, Holocaust survivors. There is different ways that we can reach out to the needy of our city.
I want to talk to you as well about the children. You do a lot for children, don't you? Children's clubs, teaching children.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I will say that in the congregation itself, we're trying to invest as much as we can among the children, all the ages from babies to being soldiers. And there is also activities, not only from our congregation, but it's like here in Haifa, what we call, we have Bible club, that it's children from different congregations coming and they do an activity once a week here at Bet Yedidia. So yeah, we put a lot of intention to that children.
The question behind this program, Dani, is always to discover what God is doing here in Israel and the wider Middle East, despite all the politics and the troubles. How would you answer that question? What is your understanding of what God is doing here in these days?
I believe that we are about to experience some kind of revival among Jewish people and also among Arab people. And I will say that saying all the good things and the nice things, there is also the other side of struggles and challenges that we're going through. And I will say that we need to be careful not to bring the politic of this world into the calling that God has given us. And sometimes I see it among Arabs and sometimes I see it among Jewish people. And I believe that as a body here in the land, Jews and Arabs, our calling is to reach out with the gospel to the Jews and the Arab people, and not to focus on whose land belong to. I mean, we can argue all the time and who's the chosen people. It's sometimes, I think the enemy wants to take us into that argument, wasting time and energy, and while we're missing the main call that God has given us. In the book of Isaiah, it says that it's too small for God, or he's speaking about the Messiah, to save the tribes of Jacob, but I will give you a light to the nations. So not only God is going to move here in the land, but I believe that the impact is going to be all over the world. So when you hear the news, what's happening in Israel, you need to know that our call as Levites, it's to introduce our people to the Messiah. And so this is what I'm trying to do. This is the way I'm going to try to take the congregation, that we will focus on the calling to bring the gospel to the Jews and the Arabs of our land.
You've been listening to Dani Sayag, and we'll hear more from him on next week's programme. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.